Welcome to the Everyday Warrior podcast, where we talk free to break free. As someone who's been told they talk too much, can speak with a mouthful of marbles, and might just be able to sell ice to Eskimos, I have found the perfect space to speak my truth and dive into deep conversations. This podcast is about celebrating everyday warriors, the people who face life's challenges head on, breaking through obstacles to build resilience, strength, and courage. Join me, your host, Trudy Marie, as I sit down with inspiring individuals who have fought their own battles and emerged stronger, sharing raw, real, and authentic stories that make you laugh, cry, debate, wonder, intrigue, feel all the emotions, and get curious about life with. This is a safe space to explore, question, and find your own path to new possibilities. Let us all embrace the warrior within and realise that while no one is walking in your shoes, others are on the same path, journeying through life together. Please note that the following podcast may contain discussions or topics that could be triggering or distressing for some listeners. I aim to provide informative and supportive content, but understand that certain themes may evoke strong emotions or memories. If you find yourself feeling overwhelmed or in need of support while listening, I encourage you to pause the podcast and take a break. Remember that it is okay to prioritise your well-being and seek assistance from trained professionals. There is no shame in this. In fact, it is the first brave step to healing. If you require immediate support, please consider reaching out to Lifeline on 13 11 14 or a crisis intervention service in your area. Thank you for listening, and please take care of yourself as you engage with the content of this podcast. Love the Everyday Warriors podcast? You can support the show for as little as $5 with a one-time donation or by becoming a monthly subscriber. Your contribution helps me continue bringing you inspiring stories of everyday warriors who overcome challenges to find strength, resilience, and new possibilities in life. Head to the link to buy me a coffee and fuel the next episode. Every bit counts. If you're looking for an inspiring story of resilience, healing, and rediscovering yourself, my book, Everyday Warrior, is for you. It's my memoir of hiking the 1,000-kilometre Bibbulmun Track, a journey that was as much about finding my way back to myself as it was about conquering the trail. Through the highs, lows, and everything in between, this book shares my raw and honest experience of overcoming trauma and embracing the strength within. Grab your copy now. Just head to the link in the show notes and let's take this journey together. Welcome to another episode of the Everyday Warriors podcast. I'm excited to have a guest here from Sydney today. We have Richa with us, who is originally from India but immigrated to Australia some 26 years ago or thereabouts. So welcome, Richa.
Thank you so much, Trudy, for having me.
You're so welcome. I'm excited to hear your story. So let me take you back to that time 26 something years ago, and what had you moved to Australia?
Yes, so I moved to Australia about 26 years back, coming from Singapore. So originally I'm from India, but we moved to Singapore. I got married soon after my uni degree was finished. I was actually in the final year. I was very young. And we moved to Singapore. Having stayed there for a few months, we decided to move to Australia. My husband got a job offer. We thought it was very lucrative. And it was a big adventure for us young people to just move to a new country. And we always wanted to live in different cities, in different countries, experiencing different cultures. So it was more for an adventure than anything else that we decided to move to Australia. And when we came, we didn't know that we would be here for such a long time and we would stay back here.
Yeah, so you started off with this plan of wanting to move and travel the world and got to Singapore and then got to Australia and then stopped. So what was it that you firstly loved about Australia that had you stay?
Yes, but before moving to Australia, when we moved here, we decided to move here for about, and we stayed here for about 10 years. And then we also moved to America for a few years. And then we came back, decided to come back to Australia and call this place home. And coming back to your question, what we loved when we came here, I really loved the casualness, the ability to connect with another human being. I never honestly felt any difference. I try to connect people as humans. I don't see them through race or religion or anything else. And fortunately, I got the same response. I met beautiful, beautiful people who helped us settle down and all kind of help I could ever ask for. There was never any major incident like I sometimes hear from other immigrant people who have moved from different places. This was beautiful to have this welcoming casualness in Australian culture and just being accepted for who you are, completely as who you are, without expecting you to change.
I love that. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about Australia as a country overall is that we do accept people from all different nationalities, all different cultures. And we do, for the most part, I won't say 100%, but for the most part, we do welcome them with open arms.
Absolutely. Yeah. As I said, I had a beautiful, beautiful experience. When we moved in here, we were in a guest house in St. Leonard's in Sydney. And there was this lady. She gifted me a few things like a bed sheet and a pillow cover set and a tablecloth and just little things when she found out that we are here for a long time. And it was so nice of her to just make us feel welcome.
That's so nice when strangers just gift you with something to make you feel at home, like you feel like you're in the right place.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So, in saying that, and I love the fact that you did have this welcoming opportunity to come to the place that I was born and raised, but as an immigrant, were there also some difficulties in that process?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So there were a lot of challenges when I moved in first here, in the first few years, especially. I learned English in my school, so language was not a barrier to me, but the kind of English I learned in India was very different than the kind of English we speak here. So, and even the accent is different and the terms are different. And we have a term called Hinglish in India for Indian English. So uh, different words. So I never understood a few of the words in the beginning. But if I have to categorize the challenges, I would say there were different kind of challenges like social and cultural challenges. There were food related challenges. I'm a vegetarian. I'm a born Hindu, vegetarian. Everybody in my family is a vegetarian. So I had trouble finding food when we went out. I could only eat French fries when we moved in here, let's say about 26 years back. I couldn't find much vegetarian food outside. And then there were parenting challenges when I had my children. And then there were some financial difficulties, although I come from a reasonably well to do family in India. So I had to face certain things because I had a child and I could not find any work of not having any local work experience, even after having a degree and some work experience in India. So, having stayed home for a long time, raising children, there was loneliness, there was sadness, there was this feeling of being cut off from rest of the world. There was, I wouldn't say depression, but a bit of sadness of losing out on my roots, not being able to celebrate the festivals I used to, and not being able to spend time with my family in India. So the big festivals in India we have like Diwali, Holi, Navratri, Janmashtami. There are four big festivals at least. Like in India, they say that you have one festival for every day. So from that culture, coming to a place where I was on my own, the clothes I used to wear there were different. I used to wear mainly salwar suits and maybe saris or lehenga for occasional parties and events. And I never got a chance to wear them here in the first 2, 3 years. Even after making some friends from Indian community, it was hard. So yeah, there were social and cultural differences, I think, which was the hardest to begin with for me. And also because having come from a joint family like setting, I don't know if you are aware of that in India, still some of the families practice joint family settings. Some of my relatives, like my uncle, is still in that setting where his son, his daughter-in-law, his younger son, they all live together in a family. They all share the workload. They all share the money. They all share everything together. But what they get is that non-negotiable support from each other. And because it is done since the start, you kind of adapt to this lifestyle, and then you start also taking the benefits of it. Of course there are challenges with that situation as well, but still there are some benefits there. You are there for each other, you are together. So having a part of that kind of family system where my cousins are like my siblings, I have a really close knit extended family in India, and here I was on my own when I had my daughter. So, yes, there were a lot of challenges.
Like just listening to you go through all of that, I can only imagine what it must be like. Firstly, even dealing with the language. Like, I know my husband is from America and he speaks obviously English as his first language. He knows Spanish as well. But the way he says certain things and the way his colloquialisms are completely different to Australian. So I sometimes feel like I speak like a real Ocker Aussie because some of the things I say are what I have been raised with. So when you said about the Indian English, I was like, yes, I can totally relate to that because you have to learn how things are said within culture. And there is a definitive Australian culture, even if we don't naturally see it, it is there. So I loved that you were talking about, yeah, this Kinglish, like the Indian English kind of thing. But socially and culturally, even from the religious aspect and that whole family dynamic, that must have been extremely hard for you as a new mother in a country where you practically know no one and you're having a child, which is hard enough as itself, being a mum for the first time. Like, how did you cope in that situation?
Yes, so to begin with, when I had my child, I it wasn't even a year in Australia, and I had my daughter before that. So I was in a new country with new setting, and as I said, with everything social and cultural different expectations and surroundings around me. The one thing that I'm really grateful for, which I found, was early childhood group. So I was a part of that group and I made one very good friend there. It was such a fantastic chance to, just network, go and talk to your other people in your situation. And this other girl was similar like me, a very young mom in her early 20s. So we had a lot in common, and she had moved in from Fiji. So we would discuss our experiences, and her husband was Italian. So we had stories to share with each other, exchange of food, ideas, yeah, and also our struggles together. So she was a friend of mine for a very, very long time, and we were each other's support system in that time. Other than that, I would also like to mention that my husband was working. He's in a corporate job, so he was working with Optus at that time, and the people there were so supportive. Like anything we need, they were ready to help us, and they all came for my husband's group of work friends. They came for my daughter's first birthday. We had a slightly bigger party, and I was so happy to have that group of people around us, to have that support system. I mean, not like my family, they were of course like still friends, and I was missing my family and my extended family, my cousins, my sister, my parents, everybody. It's not the same, but I would still say that at least I had some support system here, and they were happy to help us, teach us whatever we needed to know. So it was a beautiful, beautiful learning experience as well.
So your friends here in Australia became like your surrogate family. They became your support network without your family.
That happened actually after 10 or 12 years, I would say 10, 12 years. There was one family I especially want to mention, and they were so I call him uncle, and Mama Ji is a term used in Indian language for mother's brother. So I call him Mama Ji, because he is my friend's relative, not mine. But when we came here, they adopted us, and his wife is from Sri Lanka, a Malay Sri Lankan. So she acted like my mother. And because I was so young, so naive, they were the first one to taught us everything, and they became our first family here when we moved in here. They were throughout a good support system till now. She is like my mother to me, and a good support system to us. But it took us a little bit of time to find other like-minded friends. I think we were trying in all the directions and trying to meet all kind of people, but it took me about 15 years to have a set of three different groups. So there is a work group, there is a local neighbors and local community group, which I want to mention that I found through volunteering. And I would always suggest people who migrate here to start volunteering as soon as possible, because you meet such beautiful people, beautiful souls who are giving their time and effort to just giving back to the community. There's no personal gain in that. And I received so much through volunteering, and I have volunteered in a radio station, in Hornsby Girls High School, through Smith Family. So I was a volunteer for a long part of my life. I've always been volunteering for something. And that has given me a community as well, that community support too.
I love that idea that giving back to the community as a volunteer not only allows you to contribute to this new country that you're now living in, but to go and meet and to network and to connect with like minded people who are often probably in very similar situations that don't know where to go or what to do, but just by putting themselves out there, and there is such a beautiful reciprocal payment in the sense of that what you're getting from them, you're actually giving back as well. So you're building your own confidence, you're building a community and support network around you, you're building a sense of purpose. Like, such a beautiful way to look at volunteering, especially as an immigrant.
Yes, absolutely. I cannot emphasize too much, on that. This is one of the things I would really, really suggest people, anybody who's moving in, that is the first thing you should do to connect to the community, because you learn not just about, it is not just about networking, you learn the culture, which you don't actually know if you're living in another country. And however you read through social media, or it is a different thing when you go and settle down and live in a new country, it is not the same. So you learn the language, you learn what is important in Australian culture. And there is for example, there is a difference culturally, a very small thing. Like in India, there's a respect for elders, and that's really important, that respect for elders, so much so that you go out of your way to help them without assuming that they might not need your help. And that happened with me at a hospital when I came here, and I went to the hospital for something, and there was this lady about 90-year-old, and she was trying to get up from her chair and she wasn't able to. And I had just moved in, say about maybe 8, 10 months or so. And without thinking, I went to her and I said, "Oh, do you want me to help you?" And I don't think I even asked. I just took her stick and handed it over to her. And she looked at me and she yelled at me and she said, "Go away. I don't need your help. I can do it myself." And that was a shock to me, because I did not think like that, that, people may see it as intruding in their space, and you are maybe breaking that boundary. So I remember to ask everyone. It's still in me. Whenever I see an old person, and if I'm in a train, I'll stand up for that person. And I've taught the same to my kids as well. So there are things, still which come across like that.
And it's so interesting to listen to you say that, in the sense that we often note the big cultural differences, like things like when you said about your religion and your what you eat because you're vegetarian, and that would have been tough back in the day because, I mean, 26 years ago it wasn't as common as what it is now. But those little tiny social differences that aren't necessarily obvious, that are still cultural boundaries and cultural ways of being that you have to navigate in living in a new country.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And that is why volunteering is so important, because when you go in, and it is a very safe setting when you volunteer, because everybody out there is there to give something to the community. So it is a very uplifted, enlightened space, I would say, where everybody is connected to work together through a common cause. And I learned most of my understanding and knowledge comes through volunteering about the culture of the place what I call home now, Australia.
I love that. And one of the other things that I'm just thinking about, like talking about the time difference, and we kind of discussed this a little bit off camera, was the connection that you have. Like, obviously, you've left your family, and because family is such a significant cultural factor within your Indian community, that 26 years ago, it would have been the whole dial up Telstra call, whatever the case may be, where you're paying by the minute. So your calls had to be not only quick, but they were expensive. And comparative to now, where you can jump on a FaceTime call and spend an hour on the phone to your family at no charge.
This is like living on another planet now. Totally different, yes. So when we moved in here, the cost of calling India was $1.10 through Telstra. There were no other competitors in the market at that time. And we used to buy the calling cards to save money. And that also happened after about 2 years or so. They were not available when I moved in. So I have paid like thousands and thousands of dollars to Telstra. They should give me free call services for my whole lifetime, I think now. And with the calling cards, they were a little bit cheaper for different countries. So you can call India, China, Thailand, Indonesia, wherever, USA, wherever you want to call. And they had different rates to them, which was slightly cheaper. I would say about 50% cheaper than Telstra. So once they came in, of course, it made my life a little bit easier. But it was really hard because I could only call once week maybe, and that too, it was so quick. There was hardly any exchange of stories or what's going on and in each other's lives, so there was a bit of a disconnect. And this I'm talking about just my parents and sister. I could not talk to my extended family. I could not talk to my friends, really dear close friends I've known since my childhood. So there was a huge disconnect which came in for a long time, and that was there until the other companies came in and the rates came in. And I can't even believe now that you don't even have to pay. You can just FaceTime or do WhatsApp call as many times you want. And you can even see the other person, which was a blessing when it just started, that I could see my mom's face sitting far away, and it was so hard in those times to have a little child, and when she's crying and not knowing why she's crying for, because I was in my early 20s myself, I didn't have much help. I went to Tresillian, I remember once, but somehow I did not probably gel with that concept, because then again there was a huge cultural difference, because my daughter could not sleep at night. And Tresillian treatment was, how they used to do that in old days. I don't know if they still do that, that you let the child cry as long as it takes for them to settle down, and then they learn to self-soothe themselves. It is so contrary to India, where we kind of keep the child close to our heart the whole time. And it is possible because you are not the only one doing that. You have an extended family to do that. When I went to India in those days, I never had to care for her as much because she was always in somebody else's arms. So I was not as tired. But here, because it did not gel with me, I did not apply that Tresillian policy or whatever strategy they had. It did not work for me. And it made my life even harder because I was carrying her most of the times, trying to put her to sleep by myself, not being able to talk to my mom for any advice, and just relying on my own intuition. We didn't have any internet in those days. Internet had come in, but and I had an assembled computer in those days. I remember in 2000, but it wasn't easy to find out any information. There was not as much information available about pregnancy, about the problems with pregnancy, or about later on, like how to raise a child, what to do. These days, you can just Google, my child is not able to sleep. What do I do? There are thousands of melodies and different kind of music available on Spotify, YouTube. They were not available in those days. So that makes it extremely hard for me. Yeah.
I can only begin to imagine what that must have been like, having had two children myself and having my mother close by. And my mother, like you said, is the person that you go to when you need the help the most. And I could literally either, pick up the phone and give her a call and she was around the corner. But the idea of having no or limited communication, like my daughter now lives in Bali, and I love the fact that I can FaceTime her. In fact, I FaceTimed her, this morning before our call, and to see her and know that she's okay and have that conversation, to not have that, I don't know how, even as a mother, that I would cope having my daughter or parent or whatever on the other side of the world and not be able to communicate with them.
Absolutely. And that was really heartbreaking. And maybe I don't know if that was the reason, that loneliness which creeped in. I had friends with me, but and as I said, I had a relative here whom I consider my mother. Still, I had something going on in my body at that time, and I didn't realize that. And after, say, about 8 to 10 years, I had a life-threatening illness which came from nowhere, and then to deal with that with a 3 year old and a 6 year old on my own, it was extremely, extremely hard. And although I'm grateful for my mom because she came here and stayed with us for about some time, a few months actually, to give me that support. But she came a little bit later, say after the surgery was over. So the beginning part of it, I was feeling losing weight and feeling very drained and had no energy, and I didn't know what was going on. So I went to the doctor. My doctor wasn't there, so I went to another doctor, and she misdiagnosed me, and she said there's nothing, you're just tired, maybe low in iron or something. She didn't do any blood test or anything. Afterwards, say about 1 month or so, I started feeling like I'm about to collapse anytime, faint anytime. So I was feeling so low energy, and I called my husband, and he came home, and we tried finding out what can we do, but we never thought of considering any other doctor. I don't know why. Maybe just we were just trusting whatever she was telling us. And on Christmas Eve, when there were no other doctors available, my health really deteriorated. I was on bed. I couldn't get off from bed. I could not open my eyes. And then my husband had to call an emergency doctor for a home visit. And that doctor again misdiagnosed me and gave me a wrong injection. He thought it was a tummy issue, and which started this vomiting thing continuously, frequently going on and on. So I was vomiting for about every 2 minutes. I was vomiting it out. There was nothing in my tummy. I hadn't eaten in days. I just was just surviving on biscuits or fruits maybe. And at one point when I was in bathroom, I realized that this is not something normal, and if I don't go to the hospital straight away, I'm going to die. And I told my husband, take me to emergency. And then we went to the emergency, and the doctor was surprised to see that I was walking on my 2 feet. And then immediately he took me for the surgery, and I had about more than 1.5 liters of water around my lungs. It was a severe case of pneumonia, which had gone bad to worse. And he said if there was slight delay in my coming, then it would have reached my heart and I could have gone. And that thought shaked me because I had two little children. I had not seen anything. I had not worked the way I wanted to work in my life. I had not served my purpose. I had not lived with my family. I had done nothing. I had not traveled. I always wanted to go to Japan. I had not been to Japan. I said I cannot go like this. I have to do these things. So on my surgery, after my surgery on my bed alone, there was no one who came to visit me, and my husband had to take care of my kids. So he came after a day to see me. So I was on my own. And that time I realized the importance of just giving all whatever I can to myself as well, what I have been giving to this world, including my children, including my friends, and just start building a strong support system for myself because I could not go on like this. So that was really hard. And then my mom and dad, they came to know, and of course they flew in as soon as they could, and they stayed with me. And when my mom came, it was a sigh of relief because she took care, the charge of my house, and she took care. You know how moms are. She took care of my children, and I literally had to do nothing, just focus on getting better. It took me a year to get back to normal. And I'm incredibly grateful to the nurses in Hornsby Hospital who took care of me. And there were these two nurses. They used to come every day in the beginning. They had to see me taking the medicine. I was taking 11 medicines a day. So they would sit with me. They would teach me funny things. Like one of them, she taught me how to do a high bun in like 60s, you know, how they used to do a bun in 60s. She was slightly older than me. And we used to laugh and share stories. And she would watch me and she'll say, I won't go until you finish your breakfast. She'll sit with me. Oh my God, lovely, lovely people. I'm so grateful for that support.
What an experience to have a life threatening condition come out of nowhere for you and be completely alone in the sense that your family, your friends, like everybody who you would want around you at that time, to the point that, like you said, you're in hospital alone because your husband had to be home looking after your kids. So your husband couldn't even be sitting at your bedside supporting you. And you had to go through that ordeal practically on your own. And it's amazing that your parents were able to fly out and obviously be with you and support you after. But it just goes to show that what it's like as an immigrant to actually be away from your family and friends and your support network in a situation like that, that is life or death.
Absolutely. It is, yes.
Like you've come to Australia on good terms because you've come of your own cognition. But for those people who have actually come to Australia as immigrants that have come from really bad traumatic situations to then be thrown into a new country and then have a traumatic situation like that happen here, like that just adds to the whole dynamics of who we are as human beings.
Absolutely right, Rudy. Yeah. And like you said, I was fortunate in two ways that financially it wasn't a problem for me. And secondly, my parents were available and they got the visa and they could come as soon as possible. And like you said, there are so many people who are not like in a similar situation. It is much, much harder for them having moved from another country and not having a strong support system. I think that is one thing I really, really miss the most. And all the women I talk to, also through my coaching services, I've always realized these immigrant women, the number one thing on their list is we don't get social support or, you know, that strong community support as much as we would have got in India, because in India it is inbuilt in the community. It is a bit more group oriented society than individual society. And of course there is a bit of I would say there's no sense of space there. So if you tell your parents I want some space, your parents are not going to get it. What do you mean by that? So that is different. You have to set in boundary if you really want to, but that is not the culture there. So if you are coming from that kind of culture, it is a lot harder on women here who are in the similar situation, because they if they don't have any friends who can cook and give them meals. And of course now I have created that kind of support system, but in those days it was really hard because that wasn't I wasn't trying to put my focus on that, and I was just trying to live my life easily in every day without trying to focus on building a strong support system for myself.
Got it. And what is also there for me in you saying that, and it was something you said prior as well, is that while you're in your hospital bed and you were thinking about you have to prioritize yourself, and then what you just said then about creating that support network, it really comes down to the individual that, yes, there can be group services or major services provided, but it is really down to the individual person who comes here, whether you're male or female as an immigrant, that it's up to you to create that new support network. It's up to you to go out and find your new life and how you want that to look. You can't sit back and wait for it or play victim, so to speak, about, oh, that's all back there and that's how my life was. No, this is your life now. This is what you've chosen to do. How are you going to make that work best for you?
I agree 100%. So there can be different kind of support systems. This is what I have learned. So I have a group of Indian people where I mix with very frequently, where we share our food, cultural ideas, and celebrate festivals together. And they are a good support system to me. But I also have other support groups. So I'm a member of Self Realization Fellowship, which was founded by Paramahansa Yogananda in LA, I think in 1920s. And that is my spiritual belonging group. And people from all walks of life, all cultural backgrounds, all nationalities come there under one roof. So I have my belonging from there as well. And then I have another set of my neighbors and my community and people from local area whom I see very often. The same set of people, where you live in, you mix in, and they are also from all kind of different backgrounds. Some are my children's parents. I interact with some of them who have been living in Australia from 3 4 generations. So you have a different set of group which can be support system for different kind of needs and wants.
I love that you brought that up because I think so often we think that there just has to be one line of support, whether that's a family, a friend, or a work sort of situation, but it's having those networks and communities and support frameworks in all areas of your life. So if one area happens to collapse, you can pick it up somewhere else. Or if that framework disappears for whatever reason, like say, for example, you're an immigrant and you've moved to Australia and you're working, and that's great. But the minute you become a mother and you stop working, you now need a new support network around you. And I know you mentioned that previously, that having this new mum support group when your daughter was born actually helped you. So it's creating all those different levels of support around you. And I think that's important, not just as an immigrant, but for everybody to remember that you have to look after yourself in every aspect of your life.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. And just joining different communities, different groups, and that is another thing I would like to suggest to all the immigrant women and moms, especially if you are at home, you can always join a walking group, a yoga group, whatever you feel like, a pottery group. I tried to do different things when I was on my own. So I wanted to do a pottery group. I joined it. I didn't do much because I don't think I'm good at that. But you still just go out, meet people, talk to them. A singing group, maybe a local group, or if you can't find anything, you can always go to the council and do a little bit of volunteering there. Every council needs volunteers in one way or other, and then meet people and then create your own group there if you don't have anyone around you. So, and I also suggest that because, like you said, you are living here, this is your world now. I call Australia home now. So, it is important to have a support system and a group of people in the local area as well, and not just being confined to your own community. That is another thing I have learned for myself. And what that does is that opens up new horizons for me and for my children and for my husband. So my son, for example, he went to a Adventist school. Some of his friends were Adventist background; they were coming from that, and some of them were they were going to Catholic churches and other they had other religious affiliations. Having said that, it was such a beautiful community, such loving group of parents, and so accepting, mutually respecting, and that creates a community for you too. So you don't have to have it in just one way, and having multiple group of people around you, definitely, like you said, is going to cover. For example, when you are not working, or if you are even taking a break for a while, and if, for example, in my case, I didn't have any work when I came here. And I thought of trying exploring different places where I could work. And I had my own vegetarian cooking classes. So I started teaching vegetarian cooking classes in Lane Cove. And there were people coming in from every background. And it was so heartwarming. After the cooking, we would all sit down, share the meal together, share stories with each other. So there's always something we can do to create a community or a network around us.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's such an important aspect of of everyday life is having those support networks around us. So, obviously, 26 years on and having been through everything you've been through, how do you feel now about those anxiety levels and the loneliness and things like that? Has that changed for you over time?
Yes, it has. And not just a little, but drastically, I would say. But I had worked on that. I have really, really worked on that, and I'm proud of myself for and I to say that I have been working on myself since I think I was 8 years old, long, long time back. I'm in my late 40s. So I always made it a point to learn from whatever I can and how can I change it into an advantageous situation for myself, no matter what the situation is, no matter what the circumstances. For example, we moved to America for about 3 years in 2015. And it was a totally different new learning experience again. I never knew, like you said, Americans speak English differently. So I had to learn from scratch. I had to get my learner's license. I failed twice, even after being driving for more than 10 years here to get my license. Every experience taught us something new. So when I went there, the food was different, the people were different, and we decided that this is nice, but we belong to Australia. So we decided to come back. Our kids were born here and they wanted to come back too. So after 3 years, we decided to come back. And then whatever I had learned in America, because there are so many beautiful things that you can learn, their professionalism, their work ethic, they are so sincere about work and about achieving a goal. I was really inspired by that. And I thought if they can do it there, we can do it here too. So I decided to put everything, all my learnings into my work. And I started doing my own group sessions, whatever I had learned through my religious text studies, through my studying. I have studied a lot actually. I've done a communication course from Griffith University, a nutrition. I've done home and home decoration course from here. I just try to grab as many skills as I can. And I've studied Gita, all the Vedas, all Hindu texts. I try to combine everything together. And how can I use it as a purpose to help other women like me? So I invested in myself, but I also made it a point to make it a purpose, to make it a mission to help other women like me who are in similar situation. But that does not happen until you put in the effort in you. You put into the effort and you also invest time, energy, and money into yourself.
I think that's beautiful in the fact that you have looked after yourself and learnt for your own self, but then selflessly given back to the community by sharing that wisdom, which you do as a coach now. Because I know that before we started recording, you spoke about having an international clientele of people from around the world that you are helping them, whether that's in a coaching capacity for mindset or assisting them as immigrants. Like, how does that life look for you now, and how do you feel about that?
I am so incredibly grateful for being where I am today, to be able to be in a situation where I can help someone and also getting paid for it. So, what can I say? This is a beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, life has turned out beautifully well for me, I would say. I'm really grateful for the family support which I have and everything. And the all the women which I support, some of them are in India and most of them are in America and some of them are in Australia. I have learned something from each and every one of them. I have learned from their struggles, and when I see them overcoming them, whether it is loneliness, self doubt, or maybe lack of self confidence or lack of self worth, it always teaches me something about myself. Okay, where am I in this situation? How can I learn from this person? And you would know, like as a coach, when you teach others, you also go through the same experience. You also learn, you also grow. So what another thing helped me was doing coaching with them one on one in exchange of coaching programs. So I will do 8 weeks with another coach and she will do 8 weeks with me, like that. And that has helped me a lot. And I'm constantly growing, learning, and becoming a better version of myself. And I learned how self care is such an important thing and so much undervalued for women because we give so much to other people, but we hardly think about, okay, what do I do for myself? We are just trained to be martyrs, I think. And even in these times, that's not gone away, not for my generation at least.
I totally agree. And I think that women as a whole, and even men to a certain extent, that the hustle culture and this whole idea of being busy, and that the more busy you are, the more that should be treated with respect. Like, no, it's about slowing down. It's about taking care of yourself, because the old saying of you can't pour from an empty cup, you have to give people the overflow. And there is no martyrness of being busy or having this hustle culture. Like, if you can have a full productive life, but inside of that still be able to take care of yourself and take care of your children and your family, then that's okay. But if you're constantly just going to be in this busyness of going from one thing to the other, or complaining that you're tired because you can't do this, or whatever the case may be, like, what are you trying to prove? Because everybody is in the same boat. We're all just trying to make the most out of our daily lives and keep progressing to the next one.
Exactly, yes. And no matter how busy you are, you can always find 20 minutes to your for yourself. That's what I say to all my clients. 20 minutes is all, can't you give 20 minutes of your own life to yourself for your own well-being? So you cannot underestimate the power. And the question which you asked earlier as well, like how did I do that? By investing in self-care. I decided to wake up early in the morning, decided to do yoga every day, decided to go for a walk every day. Sometimes I even go for a walk in the rain with an umbrella. Last year I was walking in the in the rain in umbrella every day. Not this year, I'm not that particular, but we are human beings, so we tend to fail. But it is not important that you are failing. What is important is that you're picking back on, coming back on where you left. And just forgive yourself for all the mistakes that you have had. Don't get stuck in the past, and that's what I keep telling myself all the time. If any thought comes to me, I'm like, okay, it's all right, that happened, but that is not my reality today. My reality is that I have the power in this moment to change it. And that comes through a large part of it, I want to say, comes through my spiritual learnings, which I have learned through Paramahansa Yogananda, through the Self Realization Fellowship group. That taught me a lot about the meaning of life. And spirituality is an important part of my life, a huge part of my life. And that has been the backbone for me, my backbone, and has helped me become the kind of person I am today.
Beautiful. I love that. Well, Richa, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story today, because I think so many people will relate to it, whether they are immigrants into Australia or whether they are Australians immigrating elsewhere in the world. I think what you've shared, your hurdles that you've had to overcome, and the ease at which you do it now, I think is to be commended, because it takes a level of strength and resilience and courage to go out there and try new things, to take on a new life, and to embrace that life fully and live life as it's meant to be lived.
Wow. Very beautifully summarized, Trudy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. And I always end our conversations with, what is the one thing you are most grateful for today?
I'm grateful for having people in my life like you, like the everyday warriors, like the warrior of light, like yourself, Trudy, the doctors, the nurses, the friends, my neighbors. Oh, the list is endless. My family, my extended family, my children, my husband. I am just so grateful for having each and every one of you in my life.
Thank you for tuning in to the Everyday Warriors podcast. If you have an idea for a future episode or a story you'd like to share yourself, then please message me, as I am always up for real, raw, and authentic conversations with other everyday warriors. If you love what you are hearing, please be sure to subscribe and hear all the latest episodes, and spread word to your family, friends, and colleagues so they can listen in too. If you are sharing on social media, please be sure to tag me at _Trudy_Marie_ so I can personally acknowledge you. I am always open to comment about how these episodes have resonated with you, the listener. It would also mean the world to me if you were to leave a 5-star review to ensure that the Everyday Warrior podcast is heard by more listeners around the world. And remember, lead with love as you live this one wild and precious life.